Not with her. The officer said it flat, like he was reading a weather report. One hand up, palm out, the other resting on his belt. The doors behind him were glass and gold, and through them the light of the Vance Dynamics atrium spilled onto the wet pavement where Maya Okonkwo stood holding her grandmother's arm. "Sir, we have an invitation," Maya said. "I heard you. The gentleman can go." Not with her. Rain ticked against the awning. Her grandmother Pearl tightened her grip on a small beaded purse she had carried to church for 30 years. A man in a charcoal suit, a colleague Maya barely knew, slid past the officer with a nod and disappeared into the warm gold light without looking back. The door sighed shut behind him. Officer Doyle looked Maya up and down. Her dress was navy and plain. Her shoes were last season. The badge clipped to her clutch reed staff in small letters, because the system had printed it wrong and she had not had time to fix it. "Catering's around back," he said. "Take Grandma with you." Then he reached out, put 2 fingers on Maya's shoulder, and turned her toward the alley. The small leather notebook tucked under her arm slipped and fell open into a puddle, its pages going dark with water, the initials J.O. pressed into the cover, catching the light one last time before they went under. In 90 minutes, Officer Doyle would stand in that same atrium while 400 people learned exactly who he had turned away. He didn't know that yet. None of them did. "Yo, hold on. He put his hands on her? And knocked her daddy's book in the water? Nah, we're gonna sit right here and watch this whole thing play out. Let's get into it." Long before the gala, before Helios, before the glass doors, there was a 3rd-floor apartment on Calhoun Street where the radiator knocked all night and gave back no heat. Maya Okonkwo learned to do her homework in gloves. She learned that the bucket in the hall meant the roof was leaking again, that the landlord would not come, and that her father would fix it himself with a borrowed ladder and a tube of tar. James Okonkwo repaired machines other people had given up on. Washing machines, window units, a neighbor's ancient furnace. He carried a small leather notebook in his shirt pocket, and in it he wrote every problem he ever solved in tight engineer's print, so he would never have to solve the same one twice. On the cover he had pressed his initials, J.O., with a kit he bought for $1. He used to tap the cover and tell Maya, "Everything I know is in here. One day it'll be everything you know too." He died when she was 14. A scaffold gave way on a job that was not even his. Grandmother Pearl moved in the next week and never left. She worked 2 shifts and came home smelling of bleach and kept Maya in school. When Maya brought home a science fair ribbon, Pearl ironed it flat and kept it in her purse, and it was still there, faded to the color of weak tea, on the night the officer stood in the door. Maya taught herself the mathematics her school did not offer. From library books she renewed until they stopped charging her. She earned a scholarship she had to ride a bus 11 hours to claim. She studied control systems and power electronics, and she carried her father's notebook to every exam, not to cheat, but to remember why. 8 years later, she walked into Vance Dynamics as the most junior engineer on a team of 40. Within 3 years, she had designed the architecture for the thing the whole company was now betting its future on. They called it Helios, a grid system that could hold a city's power steady through any storm. Maya wrote its core. She stayed past midnight for 2 years building it. The earliest sketches were in her father's notebook, in her own tight print beneath his. What she did not have was a face anyone in the building bothered to remember. That was the part Preston Hale understood better than anyone. Hale was a senior vice president with good teeth and a gift for standing near other people's work. He had called Maya by the wrong name for a year, and when she corrected him, he smiled like she had told a small joke. He asked her to refill the coffee in meetings she was running. Twice he had handed her his coat in the lobby and told her to see that it got up to 12. The other engineers watched their screens. Nobody said anything. Maya said nothing either. She pressed her thumbnail into the side of her finger until the feeling passed, and she went back to work. In a design review that spring, Maya presented the fault tolerance model that made Helios viable. When she finished, Hale leaned back and told the room, "It's a solid start. We'll want someone with real systems depth to pressure test it." He looked at her when he said it. "No offense. There are preparation gaps. Not your fault where you came up." A few people laughed, the soft kind of laugh that wants to be on the safe side. A junior engineer named Reuben opened his mouth, then closed it, and looked at the table. Maya thanked Hale for the feedback. Her voice did not shake. Under the table, her hands were folded so tight the knuckles had gone pale. Then came the part she did not see until it was done. When the patent was filed in the fall, Maya's name was not on it. When the press kit went out, the architecture was credited to the Helios leadership team under SVP Preston Hale. She found her own diagrams in the company deck with the corner where she always wrote her initials cropped clean off. She brought it to Hale. He folded his hands and said the filing was a team decision, and that she should be careful about how much she wanted to make this about herself. He squeezed a blue stress ball twice while he said it, then set it down, perfectly aligned on the edge of his desk. She filed a complaint with HR. A woman with a kind voice told her it had been logged and marked resolved, no further action needed. That was the word they used. Resolved. The week after, a new contractor badge appeared on the secure server room she had built the access protocols for, and Maya's own credentials no longer opened the door. She stood in the hallway and tried the panel 3 times while 2 colleagues stepped around her without a word. The way you step around a wet floor sign. She did not knock. She did not raise her voice. She walked the long way back to her desk, sat down, and kept building the thing they were locking her out of, because the work was hers whether the door agreed or not. So when the invitations went out for the Helios unveiling, the biggest night in the company's history, 400 guests, press, the board, Hale told Maya she didn't need to be on stage. He said the program was full. The badge the system printed for her came out reading staff and no one fixed it, and she decided she would go anyway, because her father's notebook said the answer was always to show up to the problem. She decided to bring her grandmother. Pearl had ironed a dress. She had been telling the women at church for a month that her granddaughter built the lights for a whole city. That was how the 2 of them came to be standing in the rain in front of the glass doors, holding an invitation that was real, while Officer Doyle looked at a navy dress and a church purse and a badge that said the wrong thing, and decided he already knew everything he needed to know. Not with her. He turned Maya by the shoulder. The notebook fell. Pearl bent for it, slow, her knees not what they were, and a young valet got there first and lifted it out of the water and pressed it back into Maya's hands without a word. He looked at the officer like he wanted to remember his face. Man, I need everybody to understand. That book is her whole daddy. And this man knocked it in a puddle 'cause her dress wasn't expensive enough. Nah. Watch what happens. Watch, the young valet was named Tom's, and he had already done 2 things. He had filmed the last 30 seconds on the phone in his vest pocket. And he had radioed the floor that there was a problem at the front entrance with a guest. The word guest traveled up. A floor manager came out, looked at the real name on the real invitation, went pale, and walked Maya and Pearl inside himself, apologizing the whole way, while Officer Doyle said, "How was I supposed to know?" to no one. Inside, the atrium was gold and enormous. A model of the Helios grid turned slowly above the crowd, lit from within. Hale saw Maya come in and crossed the floor fast. "You can't be back here," he said under his breath. "Find a seat in the back." Better yet, he didn't finish. The lights dimmed, and a voice asked everyone to welcome the founder and chief executive of Vance Dynamics, Robert Vance, to the stage. Robert Vance was 71 and did not use notes. He talked for a minute about the storm that had knocked out power to the hospital where his grandson was born, and how he had promised himself, that night, that the company would build something that never let go. "Tonight we unveil it," he said. "But first I want to do something I should have done a year ago. I want you to meet the person who actually built it." Hale straightened his jacket and took a half step toward the stairs. "Her name is Maya Okonkwo," Vance said. The room turned. Hale stopped with one foot on the step. "She came to us 3 years ago, and she wrote the core of Helios while the rest of us were still arguing about whether it could be done. I know this because I read the original design logs last month, and they are in her handwriting. Dated. Every one. Some of them are written in the margins of an old notebook that I'm told belonged to her father." Vance found her in the crowd. "Maya, come up here. Please." She did not run. She walked, with the wet notebook in her hand, past Hale, who had gone the color of paper. Pearl was on her feet by the second row, with both hands pressed flat against her chest, and tears running without a sound. On the stage, Vance turned to the room. 3 weeks ago, this board voted to make Maya Okonkwo our next Chief Technology Officer. Applause started, and he raised a hand to hold it. I'm not finished. Some of you may, by tomorrow. See a video taken outside this building 40 minutes ago. I have seen it. A man we hired to keep this door put his hands on our next Chief Technology Officer and turned her into an alley because of how she was dressed. The silence was total. And before that, for a year, a senior officer of this company took her name off her own work and called it a team decision. He looked at Hale. Preston, your access is revoked as of now. Security will walk you out the same door you let stand. It moved fast after that, the way these things do once the first stone goes. The patent counsel was already in the room. She confirmed into a microphone that the filing would be corrected to name Maya as sole principal inventor. The head of the security contractor was found near the bar and informed that the company's account was closed. Officer Doyle was brought to the edge of the stage, not as a spectacle, but because Vance wanted him to say it to her face. He could barely do it. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't realize you were someone. He could not find a bigger word. Someone, like she had become a person only when the room agreed she was. Maya looked at him for a long moment. The whole atrium waited. Then she spoke, calm and not loud, and the mics caught it anyway. You told my grandmother, not with her. She let it sit. I was the her this whole night was for. She did not say anything else. She didn't need to. Yo, I was the her this whole night was for. Run that back. She ended that man with one sentence and never raised her voice. That's different. That's grown. Okay, let's see how it lands. The fallout reached further than the room. Hale was gone by Monday, and 2 directors who had signed off on scrubbing the patent went with him in the weeks after. The security firm lost not just Vance Dynamics, but 3 other corporate accounts once Tom's video crossed 4 million views, and Officer Doyle was suspended and then quietly let go, his body cam history pulled into a review that turned up 2 earlier complaints, each one marked, on its own little form, resolved, no further action needed. The company rewrote its contractor conduct policy and named it, without irony, the front door standard. The settlement the company offered Maya for the year of stolen credit was large. She kept none of it. She put it into a fund at the community college where she had once caught the 11-hour bus, the James Okonkwo Scholarship for First-Generation Engineers. And she wrote the first check at a folding table in a hallway that smelled like the one she grew up in, floor wax and old radiator dust. The notebook dried out. The pages warped, but the print held. She kept it on her new desk on the top floor, behind glass, open to the page where her father had written, "In his tight hand, everything I know is in here." Ruben, the junior engineer who had looked at the table that day in the design review, came to her office a month later and said he should have spoken up, and that he had been ashamed of it ever since. Maya did not let him off easy, and she did not crush him. She made him her deputy on the next build and told him the only thing she asked was that the next time he saw a wet floor sign in a hallway, he stopped and helped instead of stepping around it. He never forgot it. Most of them never did. A year later, Pearl no longer climbed 3 flights to a radiator that gave no heat. She sat on the porch of a small house with a yard, in a rocker that did not sag, telling the women from the new church that her granddaughter ran the engineering for a whole company now. On the wall by the door of the Vance Dynamics lab, where every engineer passed it each morning, there was a small brass plaque. It did not carry Maya's name, it carried her father's. Beneath the initials J.O., it read, "Everything I know is in here, for the ones still showing up to the problem." Maya kept showing up. She just used the front door now. And she made sure every single day that the people standing at it remembered they could not tell who belonged by looking. All right, look. I know this one's a story. Maya isn't real, the company isn't real, none of these names are sitting in a phone book somewhere. But you tell me you haven't met an Officer Doyle. You tell me you don't know a Preston Hale. Somebody standing real close to work that isn't his. The names are made up, the feeling is not. So let me ask you straight, how many people get turned into the alley before the room finally looks up? Drop your answer in the comments, I read them. If this one moved you, hit that like button, share it with somebody who needs to hear it tonight, and subscribe so the next one finds you. We'll be right here. Let's get into the next one.